Oh, there you go. That's it, recording now. That's fine. I'll fire it across to you. Whoa.
Thanks.
The bandwidth's really poor. That's the only thing.
What's up?
The Wi-Fi is really poor for some reason.
Looking sharp here, though, Charles. Looking sharp.
I'll take that as a compliment. Right, all right. Are you ready to go, Derek? You all right?
Yep.
Bro, can you start with the prospect of supporters back? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, delighted. Obviously, step in the right direction for everybody. I think it's much welcomed. I think it's a reward for the supporters for their perseverance and loyalty to be allowed to come in. Obviously, it's a tough challenge for the club to sort out who can get in and who can't, and there'll be much debate about that. But I think it's a step in the right direction. Hopefully, we can get through Saturday's game, test game, with no dramas, and that would then give everybody the confidence to then increase numbers as we go along, and hopefully that's the start of getting back to what we're used to.
Slightly tongue-in-cheek, do you expect the supporters to adhere to the code of conduct of not chanting and singing if you score a goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to control that. It's an emotional game, and I think everybody will be desperate to show that what can be done and what's been asked of them. But it's difficult for when you're watching any game and watching your team playing, that if you can't have that emotion and enjoyment when your team score, and otherwise, it's difficult again, refereeing decisions and your normal reaction to react to all that stuff. So, being asked to count to 10 isn't the most easiest thing to do for people involved in football, but I'll certainly be shouting and shouting ball, and I'm sure plenty of other people will, and I think it'll be difficult for the fans. But I think the overriding thing is the fans will be desperate to demonstrate that what's been asked of them is what they'll get.
Do you expect it will give your players a boost on the pitch?
Yeah, I think it certainly help matters. I think obviously supporters are going to be in the one stand, so I mean it'll still be sparse in terms of the actual stadium, but I think actually seeing that visual there as supporters being allowed in, it's got to be of a benefit to the team. And it's one thing, speaking the last few home games, about it just becomes normal, and we don't want it to be the normal. No supporters in, so and you don't want that to be too long period, because you actually kind of get used to it, and it is kind of sanitised, and with no supporters there, I think the emotion of football is very important. Whether it's refereeing decisions, players making decisions because of crowd pressure and the excitement and adrenaline that a crowd can only give. Sometimes a lot of the games have been quite clinical and very. You can see teams well coached, well managed, and well structured. But sometimes you need that crowd to bring out the best, and that adrenaline and decision making that sometimes can make games a bit more open. I think referees have been very good of late as well, because I think there's less pressure on their decision making at times, and they can just see what they see. But emotion and reacting to crowd noise and passion and all the rest of it, that's part of the game. And the passionate side of it is probably been lost a bit in all of this. And I think it can come from players, it can come from staff, but it normally comes from supporters, and by and large. And I think that's what we're all missing.
The government today said that they've pushed back the date for fans to maybe re-enter all stadia in Scotland, which maybe, given what's happening in the Glasgow area, is maybe not a surprise. Do you think that we're all just going to have to be patient here?
Yeah, I think on the professional side of it, I think obviously none of us have been without. Obviously, a lot of clubs have been with their own challenges, ourselves included, with that. But I think on a professional point of view, the clubs are doing some brilliant work to demonstrate to the government and others and supporters that we can provide that safety. security inside stadiums, and we're hoping that that can still be the case. But all this is always run hand in hand with what's happening in the general public. And obviously, there was a cluster in Aberdeen a few weeks ago, and there was a lot of spotlight focused on our city, whereas now there's other areas, Renfrewshire and Glasgow, and that will continue. I'm pretty sure, I think I said back then, it'll be other areas feel the heat of what's happening in Aberdeen, and I think there'll be other areas again in the coming weeks and months ahead. But I think if we in football can demonstrate across the board that like Tess like Saturday, that we can safely provide a safe area for supporters to come and watch games without putting them any more at risk, then hopefully that then gives everybody the confidence. But I do think it will run hand in hand with what's happening generally throughout the country, and hopefully both parts of it, professional part of it and other aspects can start to improve.
Derek, when do you honestly believe that you will see a full Pittodrie again?
Don't know. I have no idea. No idea. I can't answer that question, to be honest. You hope it's sooner rather than later, but again, it's. I think, we test like Saturday will be important. I think if we can then get more numbers in the following week, and then we can start to build, and hopefully, as we go along, it gets back to what we want it to be. So I think we're still a bit away from that, what you've said there, but hopefully we can get somewhere closer to that than where we are now.
Thanks.
Eric, the First Minister said today that the further possible pilot events will be judged on a case-to-case basis. Obviously, Aberdeen have come out and said that they hope that next weekend's game would see a slightly higher number of fans allowed in. Have you had any indication yet that you're aware of as to whether or not the club will be able to actually use the Motherwell game as a test game as well?
We've been given no guarantees on anything. Obviously, we've been given the green light to proceed on Saturday, and then I think everybody will look at how well or how that went, the things we can do better. I'm sure it'll be judged. A lot of it will be judged on Saturday's performance in dealing with letting the 300 supporters in. But we're confident we can provide that safe area and demonstrate that, and hopefully that in turn. But I think again it'll be dependent on. I think St Mirren were maybe down to maybe is one of the teams that were maybe going to have test game, but because of what's happening in Renfrewshire, that kind of get knocked in the head and maybe looked elsewhere. So I do think it probably is a combination of clubs demonstrating they can deal with it, but also what's happening out with that, because obviously schools are all back now, universities going back, and workplaces starting to fill up again. So there comes a trade-off with that there may be going to be more cases, but it's how we deal with that going forward, and hopefully we can deal with the game on Saturday. I think we don't feel a pressure to do that. I think everybody's confident within the club that we can deliver what everybody expects on Saturday. We've still got to deliver 3 points as well, by the way, but we're confident we can deliver that safe environment, and then everybody gets a bit more confidence with that about maybe the next test event.
I mean, there's so much excitement about the fact that fans, albeit a small number, are finally getting the opportunity to come back and see some football. Obviously, over the last few weeks, there's been a lot of excitement and anticipation about the prospect of, all things being equal, fans, the gradual phasing in of fans starting next week. Now, that's not going to happen. As Charles has mentioned, it's getting pushed back until 5th of October at the earliest. In some regards, does that almost feel a bit deflating in a way? That what everyone is aiming towards is been kind of pushed further away again?
No, I think we expect maybe bumps along the road, but I don't think it's always going to be straightforward. And I think it's brilliant. As I said, it's rewarding the fans for their loyalty, and actually 300 actually getting in to see the team is great. But I think it gives everybody encouragement, despite not being quite as quick as what maybe a few months ago we probably thought once fans are allowed in, then it would just be automatic. And I think we're all realistic enough to see what's happening, that we've still got a lot of work to do as a nation to show that we're dealing with this virus. and I think that dealing with that, football's part of that, and all we can do is do what we can do and as best we can.
Derek, positive test for the St Mirren player, and obviously the effect that's had on Lee Hodgson too, shows the sort of fragility of all of this, but it also, in a positive sense, shows that the diligence of the football clubs, that it is just one player, and obviously all the protocols are being followed, that it hasn't meant further transmission within St Mirren.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we limit the time together, in here and at training grounds, and it's important that we try and follow that through. One positive test can decimate a team and their preparations, and obviously that test, when those test results, until those come back, there's always, for managers, there's always that nervousness until you get the okay. Obviously it's affected a few clubs this season. We actually had a positive test pre-season, but affected the player involved, being involved for a couple of pre-season games, which then put him behind for the Rangers game, the opening game of the season. So we're well aware of how that can affect a manager's preparation. So, but if you can limit it to one at any given time, one or two, you can deal with that. Just like you have to deal with injuries. It's like an additional risk, really. And it isn't ideal, but it's where we are at the minute as clubs. And it is, you're right, it gives you the confidence that it is working. The protocols that you are following through track and trace and all the rest of it. If it's one player with a positive test, then it doesn't take others down with them.
There's also football on this weekend. Some positive news regarding a couple of your strikers. Yeah,
obviously not positive for this weekend, but in terms in general, Ryan Edmondson will come back on Monday from Leeds. We'll get our physios to assess him, but obviously the way Ryan is and the way we've been liaising with Leeds, there's a bit of optimism there that it's not going to be anywhere near what we thought. I think it's still a bit early until we get eyes on him and make that assessment ourselves about how quickly he can come back. You listen to Ryan, he thinks he can come back next 2 weeks, so we'll see how he goes once he comes up, but looking forward to getting him back in amongst it. And Sam, his scan was as positive as it can be. It did, as I say, ruled out any operation, which was part of the reason why we did it this way and went down this road with him. And the likelihood is now that he can start to do some grass work over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And when we come out the next international break, probably around about the 12th of October, then he could be available for full week's training and selection.
Fantastic.
Derek, leading into the international break, of course, Aberdeen in very fine form. I guess the challenge now is to pick up where you left off.
Yeah, that is the challenge. It didn't come at the ideal time for us. We were enjoying getting a bit of strength into the legs again, a bit of rhythm for the team, performance better as we went along. Good confidence within the team and competition, as we spoke about. So thankfully we've managed to get the lads back from international duty with a clean bill of health. So we good strong numbers again to choose from, and hopefully we can, as I say, follow on from that game with Hibs with a strong performance and the result we were looking for.
Of course, Kilmarnock served notice, didn't they, before the international break with that 4-0 win over United. How difficult are they capable of making it for the Dons?
Well, they are. We haven't been on a good run up until the game against United. In terms of wins, they've struggled for those wins. But I think performances, I've seen Kilmarnock often enough, and they've never been far away. But they managed to, everything went for them on the day. They showed their goal threat. They showed their power from crosses. They counter-attacked well and got their goals. A very Kilmarnock performance. It was much. We've seen those types of performances from them, and I'm sure they'll come up here confident on the back of that. So we know it's going to be tough, but I've never really expected anything other than a tough match when we play Kilmarnock. But equally, it's important that they feel us as well on the day.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot in general. There's a lot to be excited about over the coming weeks.
Yeah, I'm pleased with the way the squad shaped up. I'm pleased that we're managed to get boys out of the treatment room, and obviously the good news about the two strikers, it helps things. I think Mikey Devlin should be back around about the same time as Sam as well. So with the 3 longer term injuries, we've managed to get a couple of good young lads out on loan and getting good loans. There'll be one or two more going out before the window closes, the younger lads as well. So, you know, I think all in all, it's been a good response from everybody over the last few weeks, and it's important now, as I said, as I said a few weeks ago, just settle down, no panic, just get on with the job, and try to win games of football, and that's got to be our focus, and it continues to be that.
Any other key news for the weekend?
No, everybody else is fit so we had a full squad, I think, available for the Hibs game, and as I say, clean bill of health for the international lads. So the three long-term ones: Devlin, Cosgrove, Edmondson, young Ethan Ross. But that's it.
Can I just get your thoughts on Craig Bryson's departure? I mean, he obviously arrived. He was a marquee signing. Everybody, including yourself, had such high hopes for him. You must be really disappointed that, you know, it just hasn't worked out for him.
Yeah, I'm gutted for him as much as I am for ourselves. You know, obviously, selfishly, myself and everybody connected with the club, we were so excited. I think unanimously across the board, it was welcomed when we signed. We'd lost some key players last summer, and Shinnie in particular from that midfield area, that driving force. And there's no doubt Craig could have been that boy for us and that player for us, but he's had so much to contend with, and I'm disappointed for him when you see players put in so much, and I said that in my statement yesterday. You know, when you see players putting so much into it to try and be a success, it's always tough coming to these sort of decisions and conclusions. But we wish him well. It hasn't worked as well as we'd hoped, and we wish Craig well and we move on.
Derek, just a quick one from me. I was just wondering, obviously your semi-final against Celtic next month, are you still hopeful that you can maybe get some fans in, even though it has been pushed back a little bit today from the First Minister?
Absolutely. I think that type of occasion is it warrants having as many supporters in as possible, and hopefully we can have a good period between now and then to, as I said before, just to try and give everybody the confidence to allow more supporters into that type of game. But whether they are in or whether they're not, we look forward to it nonetheless, but hopefully that can be the case. Right.
Thanks a lot, Derek.
Thank you.
Thank you.